What do you have to say to anybody in the first responder community that would be listening to this podcast? Is there anything that you want to say to them?
Yeah, I would say hug your families. I would say be careful. Don't take life for granted because you don't know what's coming. But also, if you're in law enforcement, take out those extra insurance policies. Take out AFLAC. Donate to Tunnels to Towers, because if something happens to you, that is what is going to be your family's lifeline. They are going to be the ones that making sure your kids go to school tuition free. They are going to help your significant other pay for sports. They are going to make sure that your kids get therapy that they need. They are going to help your brothers and sisters in blue find the support that they need after your death.
The Blue Line Voice. Blood, sand, and smoke.
Welcome to the Blue Line Voice, Blood, Sand, and Smoke podcast. I'm your host, Josh Weddell. Today we have a very special guest, Courtney Candies out of Louisiana. She is the wife of Sergeant Grant Candies, St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office in Louisiana. Grant was killed in the line of duty on March 23, 2025. He was struck while deploying spike strips to stop a high-speed pursuit. Courtney and Grant were married for 14 years, and she is the mother of two. Grant was a 9-year veteran of the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office, and he was also a Marine Corps veteran. And in 2023, he was the Deputy of the Year. Out of her loss, she found it boots on the ground. She's fighting for the Sergeant Grant Candies Officer Safety Act, safer technology so officers don't have to stand in traffic to stop a fleeing car. She's carried that fight to the Louisiana State Legislature. She runs a working farm and is raising her two kids. She's turning the worst night of her life into a mission to protect the ones still on the watch. And now I'd like to introduce Courtney Candies. Courtney, is awesome to have you on the podcast and taking your time today to share what you're doing. We're sorry for your loss, and let's dive into it.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Let's go back. Tell us how things were prior to March 23rd of 2025. Grant was a sergeant for the sheriff's office.
Yeah. So Grant was a go-getter. He led from the front, no matter what his position, Marine, deputy, corporal, sergeant. He was funny. He was committed to his job, but he was also committed to his family above all things. He worked so that we could sustain the life that we wanted for our children. And he was my best friend.
This is the difficult part that we'll talk about. March 23rd of 2025, and you get a phone call or a knock at the door?
I had went to visit Grant's mother March 22nd, 2025, down in West Wego, which is about 30 minutes, 40 minutes away from where we live. I spent the day with her, but earlier that day, he got up early so that he could spend time with me and the kids. And then after we left, he went back to sleep for night shift. So I go and hang out with his mom, and then I come home and I text him and I said, "Hey, give me a call in a little while." He said, "We're really busy right now." He said, "I'll try to call you in a little while." He said, "I love you and it's all good." I said, "Okay." I woke up in the middle of the night, around midnight. I had a nightmare. And I texted Grant and I said, "Are you okay?" And I never got a response back. And around 2:15, Sergeant Gretchen Sanders, who was a friend of Grant's and a supervisor on another shift, and Major Danny Culpepper were knocking on my door in the middle of the night. And I walked down the hall and I opened the door and I said, "Where is he?" And she said, "He's on the interstate. He didn't make it." And I said, "What happened, Gretchen?" And my knees buckled and I hit the ground. And my dad lives across the field. The major went and got my dad to come over. And she proceeded to tell me that there was a pursuit. My husband's lieutenant, David Mackey, and one of the rookies, Darby, were pursuing a fleeing vehicle that was driving erratically. And once the lights kicked on, the pursuit took off, went down I-12, 10. They were throwing drugs out the window. And at Oak Harbor, the on-ramp to Oak Harbor, Deputy Earl Thomas, who went to college with Grant and I, was staged there with spike strips. They attempted to hit Earl, but Earl rolled down in the ditch and made it out. About 200 yards away, Grant was posed at the on-ramp from Oak Harbor to I-10 with another set of spike strips. They left the left lane, went to the right lane, and intentionally ran him over at 100 miles an hour. And they continued into New Orleans. At some point, they ran into a NOPD unit and they were apprehended. It was 5 17-year-olds, 3 males and 2 females, who had been in a pursuit with Slidell PD, one of our local PDs, 2 weeks prior, the same 5. Later on, I found out that one of the females in that car was a former student of mine. So as we progressed that night, I called Grant's mom, and she immediately got in the car and came over here. And I waited on her before I had to wake my children up and tell them that their father had been killed.
That's one of the hardest things you'd probably had to ever do.
It is the hardest thing I have ever had to do. The following week was just a blur. I knew that I would be faced with a very, very large funeral, but at the moment Gretchen told me my husband had been killed, it didn't go to, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" It went to, "Oh my God, I have to support these kids financially. How am I going to do that? How am I going to survive on one income alone?" I immediately went into survival mode, and I've been in survival mode ever since.
Afterwards, what was do you think the hardest day the days after, what was the hardest day that you had to overcome?
Probably, there's 2 of them actually. They took my husband's body to the coroner's office because they didn't take him to the hospital. There was no sense. He was already gone the moment he was hit. They called me from the coroner's office and says, "We are taking Grant from the coroner's office to the funeral home There's going to be a procession. Would you like to go? Watching my husband's body in a flag draped body bag be rolled out, loaded into a hearse, and convoy was one of the hardest days ever. At that time, I got a phone call from Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, and I said, "Sir, I'm going to have to call you back. I'm picking my husband's body up from the coroner's office." And I said, "Call me later." He said, "Will 2 hours be okay?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And I hung up on him. And then the funeral. There were helicopters. There was a helicopter flyover, riderless horse, bagpipes. 8,000 people were in attendance. Flags were everywhere. The funeral procession was 10 miles long. It was full of honor and respect that he deserved. To this day, I can't hear bagpipes without having flashbacks. Watching my children mourn the man that was Superman to them has been the hardest thing in my life.
You're still dealing with a lot of grief, but you took that grief and you turned it into fight.
Correct. If I needed a mission, to be honest. I needed something to occupy my time. I needed my husband's death not to be an act of senselessness. So I started Boots on the Ground, the Grant Candies Foundation, which is a not-for-profit organization. And we give scholarships to young people who want to go into law enforcement, first responder, any of that field. Eventually, I would like to sponsor law enforcement that may not be able to afford their own gear, such as smaller departments, but it's a stepping stone. And I've also been fighting for the Grant Candies Officer Safety Act, which makes spike strips obsolete in the state of Louisiana. And it will be funded through grants to start with, and then through ticket writing to sustain it. Grappler hooks, GPS tracking, anything is better than spike strips. There's so many options that we have to choose from. Why are we still using antiquated technology?
Yeah, can you explain where you're at right now? Because you've been in the state legislature in Louisiana. Where is that process at right now?
Okay, so Representative and I, Gloriosa, we talked about the bills, and they went to a highway safety committee, and it was approved through the committee without any standing, without any opposition. My 14-year-old daughter spoke at how this affected her, also brought to light the effect that this has on children, not just adults. This is a family, and my kid blew it out the water. She is so her daddy's child, and she is so strong. So it passed the committee, and now it will go to the House floor. It will be, hopefully, it will pass the House floor, and then it will go to the Senate side. And if it passes that, then it'll go to the governor's office for signing.
For the audience that's listening, we know what spike strips are, and they've been using them for, I don't even know how long. It's been a long, long time. And people can go on YouTube and watch all sorts of videos of that. The fleeing suspects, it's not uncommon for them to swerve towards law enforcement who's deploying the spike strips, and it's a dangerous situation to be in. And some of the technology you spoke about, and I know one of them is that grappler hook, which attaches to the front bumper of the patrol vehicle, and the officer in the patrol vehicle gets behind the suspect vehicle, and obviously there must be some sort of switch or button that they hit, and it deploys around the rear of the suspect vehicle, which I think it goes around the rear axle or the bumper. It's kind of funny to me because you feel this yank from behind and you're not going anywhere. That's one of the technologies, is the grappler hook and the GPS tracking, because I believe, do some of the like auto manufacturers, are they helping law enforcement with the GPS tracking or no?
Not to my knowledge, but I'm not sure on that.
Besides the grappler and the GPS, is there any other technology that's up and coming, like shut off mechanisms or whatnot, that you're aware of?
There is a net that deploys from the bumper that spins around one of the tires and disables the.
Mhm.
So there's a couple different options.
So it's obvious what you're doing is something in Louisiana. It's important, and we spoke before the podcast that once you get done here, you're taking this with you, which I think it's good, because Louisiana will be the stepping stone, right? And say, hey, this is what we did in Louisiana. Now we can bring this to other states or to the federal government and say, we need to have these grants, have the money allocated for police agencies throughout the country to adapt this new technology, this new equipment, and officer safety is paramount.
Yes, that is our goal, is to get it nationwide. Why are we still using spike strips and putting our officers in harm's way when there are better things? I can't save my family, but I can save somebody else's.
That's a good way to put it. That you just said it right there, which is very important.
My kids will tell you that they don't want any other kids ever to feel the pain that they have. And I agree with them.
Let's go into, because we talk a lot about officers in the line of duty, male and female, who experience trauma, right? But we don't talk enough about the spouses of these officers who have to experience the trauma. And you're one of them, right?
Yes.
And you've had to, I'm sure that you've had to put yourself in a position to help your children, help yourself to get better, to work through this. And there's resources out there for spouses and families of law enforcement, right?
Yes. Most states have the COPS, the COPS organization, Concerns of Police Survivors. They are amazing. They handle National Police Week, and they usually have state chapters with therapy and funding for different things, just depending on what it is. There is the Gary Sinise Foundation. They do a lot of therapy. They will send families to Disney in December with 300 other families that have lost someone to the line of duty. And while we're there, they also offer therapy and guidance, as well as other resources for finances and educational benefits. They bring everything to the table for us so that we don't have to go looking for it. And then there is Tunnels to Towers. My home and Grant's home, we didn't have a mortgage, but it was an older home. They came in and totally renovated my home. New floors, new roof, moved walls, added a new room, everything. New kitchen. They did that for us so that I didn't have to worry about fixing this house.
Tunnels to Towers, the Gary Sinise Foundation. All I hear is
Props.
very, very, very good things about them.
They are amazing. All of those foundations are amazing.
We've already hit on this a little bit, but we'll go a little bit more in depth. There's a lot of spouses out there. For somebody that's a spouse right now who has a significant other, it's about to go out on shift. What do you want them to know?
Hug your officer because it might be the last time you see them, but also have the confidence in them that they're going to come home. They're going to do everything in their power to come home to you. I never lived my life afraid that Grant was not going to come home. I always had it in my mind that he was good at his job, and I knew that the guys that he worked with were top notch also. I never worried. And Grant died doing what he loved. I don't think I could have seen him laying in a hospital bed somewhere. Have faith.
What does the silence in law enforcement families cost? What is that like?
After my husband died, it's like being homeless in my own home. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. Your brain has developed a disease that people that go to war get because essentially you're at war. You have the public who looks at you not necessarily in a bad way, but everybody knew who I was when I went in the feed store to get feed, or went into Walmart or the grocery store. If I was walking down the street, they knew who I was. I went from being a nobody to everyone knowing my face, knowing who I was, and my children, and asking, "Well, how are you?" "Well, do you want the sugar-coated answer, or you really want to know how I am? Because I'm terrible. I have night terrors. I have flashbacks. I have developed high blood pressure. Antidepressants has made me gain 60 pounds. And I feel empty. And nothing can change that. And you feel like you don't know who to trust because you end up with a large amount of money and people are coming out the woodwork that you've never seen before. And people you've talked to, they change. The relationship, the family dynamics change significantly. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. People that you weren't close to before, they'll be close. Rely on other widows to help you because they've walked in your shoes. They understand where you're at.
What do you think has actually helped the most for you and your family?
Traveling, we go on a lot of vacations, and that's simply because me and the kids have to keep moving. Sitting still and wallowing in our grief doesn't help. So I'm dragging my kids all over the country and all over the world in order to give them the experience that Grant and I wanted to. Traveling helps. Talking to other families that have been in our situation. The Gary Sinise Foundation has been very, very, very helpful with connecting others who are like us. To the rest of the world, it's been 15 months. I should have my life together by now. I should be able to get out of bed and cook breakfast and get up and go to work and be okay. However, I haven't slept in 3 days. And when I see the unit running code down the interstate, my brain immediately goes, oh my God, Grant. Oh no, Grant's dead on the interstate. Oh no, there's a knock at the door. And it's a spiral that you can't stop. And nobody understands why you haven't gotten past this. We haven't went to trial. Yet it's in the process. But in the beginning, I was numb. I didn't feel anything. 15 months later, I feel everything. I recall things that I didn't know that I recalled. It's like my memories are somewhat coming back, and they're sneaking in there at the very most unopportune moment possible.
Fortunately, that's the way it goes most of the time. You had the farm. Has that been somewhat of a coping mechanism?
We have chickens, we have bunnies, we have goats, we have cows. The only thing we don't have right now is a pig. But we have 15 acres, and there is always something to do around here. So I'll get up and I'll get on the tractor and I'll bush hog and cut hay, and I can hear my husband saying, "Get off my tractor, woman." He hated when I drove the tractor because I couldn't grade the road to save my life. "Get off my tractor." Well, guess what? You got murdered. I'm on the tractor, buddy. Sorry about your bad luck. The cows, they give my kids a purpose. They go out and feed them and brush them and um tend to them, and it's it's our way of life. We've always grown our own food, and we've always had a simpler life. We live in the middle of nowhere, and we're always on the river and fishing, and we're not city people, which there's nothing wrong with being city people, but it's a little bit slower here, and it's peaceful.
I want to go back. You mentioned something. So it's been 15 months, and the individuals that were involved in this horrific incident there has not been a trial yet?
No, they did not charge the 2 females in the car because they were being kidnapped. They called in saying that their friends wouldn't let them out the car and that they were planning to hit another officer. We have went through grand jury. We have went through motion hearings. We were scheduled to go to trial this fall, but they changed judges because Louisiana law states that a judge cannot proceed uh, over a bench after the age of 70. Well, their term is up and they have to elect new judges. So July 6th, we have a hearing coming up, a status hearing, and we'll go to that. But the 3 males are in prison without bond. They are in St. John Parish, Plaquemines Parish, and St. Bernard Parish. They have them all separated. Initially, they were charged with first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder, but the federal government says that you can't execute a 17-year-old. but in Louisiana, they're being tried as adults. So they knocked it down to second-degree murder for the front seat passenger and the driver, and which still carries life in prison, but they will be eligible for parole in 25 years. The backseat passenger's charge is manslaughter, which carries a sentence of up to 38 years with a mandatory 85% sentence served before they're eligible for parole. So the district attorney's office has been very good at handling this, but with the complexity of the case, their attorneys have filed for motion to split it up, which was denied, and they're dragging it out as long as possible, which for us is miserable.
Yeah, because you want to put this behind you. You want you, your kids, Grant's family, your family, you all want to move on.
We need to close the chapter.
You need to close the chapter, and unfortunately, you still have to go through the trial situation, which is not going to be fun. They're probably looking late this summer or fall, I would suspect, for trial.
We're looking at probably winter of this year, maybe into spring of next year, just depending. That it's a long process in which I understand that everybody's entitled to due process, but whenever you have families like ours, it's hard.
Yeah. How is, I know you mentioned earlier that you're close with Grant's side of the family and his
Yes.
mom. Uh, are they doing okay?
Um, his mom has PTSD also, and she is a shell of who she was, but I love that woman very, very much. She is a great grandmother to my kids. I lost my mom at 22 and she's stepped up, and I'm not her daughter-in-law, I'm her daughter. One of Grant's sisters actually moved in next door to help me with the kids. Lacey is amazing. She is the youngest one at the bunch at 30 years old, and I love having her here. And then Grant's other sister, Lauren, she has 2 kids, and I talk to her every day. She's also a teacher. She's struggling as well. Her and Grant were extremely close.
What do you want to say about Grant's legacy?
Mm. Grant was a lead from the front man. He would not ask his guys to do anything that he wouldn't do. Everything that I'm doing is for him. Everything that I do, I keep what he would want in mind when I'm trying to make changes. I I need my son to grow up to be the man that his father was. Honesty, integrity. He was humble. Grant was also he liked to kick over anthills a lot, and he was always into some kind of business, but he handled his business. And that's what I'm trying to teach my kids, that you can get into a lot of stuff, but you need to get yourself out. Be a man, own it, and just go with it.
So it looks like that what you described, what you're pushing in the state of Louisiana, it's moving forward, and that is tremendous. Where do you see that in a few years from now? Do you feel that it's going to be something's going to be enacted within the state of Louisiana?
Yes. There have been several deputies, troopers, officers that have been killed in the state of Louisiana while using spike strips. And I think that the families of law enforcement have had enough, and we're pushing back, and we have some traction with this, especially with our children who feel as strongly as we do about the situation that are involved. And I'm hoping that within the next year, it will be enacted in the state of Louisiana.
Boots on the ground, which you found non-for-profit. Where can that be found? Is there a
Facebook,
website, Facebook?
Facebook, Boots on the Ground, the Grant Candies Foundation.
And people can donate to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Just reach out to me on Facebook and we'll figure it out how to donate. It's still up and coming with everything that I have going on. I'm still getting paperwork done and different things like that. We're working on it, but just reach out to me on Facebook and we can talk about donations. We can talk about helping others, whatever we need. We'll try to make it happen.
What do you have to say to anybody in the first responder community that would be listening to this podcast? Is there anything that you would want to say to them?
Yeah, I would say hug your families. I would say be careful. Don't take life for granted because you don't know what's coming. But also, if you're in law enforcement, take out those extra insurance policies. Take out Aflac. Donate to Tunnels to Towers because if something happens to you, that is what is going to be your family's lifeline. They are going to be the ones that making sure your kids go to school tuition free. They are going to help your significant other pay for sports. They are going to make sure that your kids get the therapy that they need. They are going to help your brothers and sisters in blue find the support that they need after your death. God forbid that come.
You've mentioned the organizations that's helped you. And, I see the commercials on TV all the time for Tunnels to Tower and Gary Sinise, but I think they need to know more about them, right? So it's imperative that people know about these organizations, that
I
they're
didn't know
there.
anything about Tunnels Towers or Gary Sinise Foundation. Couldn't have told you anything about it.
I watched a lot of videos with Gary Sinise. He plays the guitar,
He does.
has the band. Yeah, he's
Lieutenant
pretty.
Dan Band.
Yeah, the lieutenant. He seems like a cool cat, and what he's doing with his organization and the Tunnels to Towers Foundation. I do not remember the gentleman who started that organization. I know he lost a
Right.
family member. Yeah, that's it. And I seen him speak a lot and watch some of his videos. And they're just two great organizations out there.
There.
And what was the organization that's been helping you and your family? The cops organization?
Yep. Concerns of police survivors. Each state has a state chapter, a local chapter, but then there's the national chapter, which will send survivors to Police Week and will help with the PSOB benefit from the federal government because that takes forever to receive. And if you need help with legalities, they will be there for you.
Well, Courtney, it has been a pleasure having you on this morning.
Thank you.
I know we're in different time zones and you had to get up a little early for this, but I can't thank you enough in sharing your story. I know it's a very hard story to share, and you held your composure. You did an awesome job. I can't thank you enough for doing this and the resources that you're bringing forward and advocacy, which is very important. I will say this as a retired law enforcement officer, thank you. And I know there's officers throughout the country that would be more than happy to thank you for what the advocacy that you're doing and trying to bring forth and the intention that you're trying to spread.
I have a voice, and I'm going to use it for good.
That's the right thing to say. And that is good. Use your voice. So thank you again. It's much appreciated. Hang out and I'll be with you in a minute.
Thank you.